I want to tell you guys how I shot this photo. So I guess this all begins when I bought my lens. So I bought the Sigma 35 prime lens for two reasons. For videography, because it is super nice on a gimbal and it has a really low aperture. And two, for astrophotography. I have been wanting to capture a cool image of the Milky Way for forever. So I finally bought one and I looked at Katie and I was like, hey, if it's clear tonight, do you want to go try to take pictures of the stars? And she said, sure. So after the Iowa basketball game, it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I had my PJs on, and I really didn't want to leave the house. But we did. We didn't know where we were going to go. We wanted to go north, so we hopped in the car, and we just started driving. We ended up at Island Lake, about half an hour north of Duluth here, and we pulled off on this boat launch. I spent about 20 minutes getting my camera all set up, figuring out the settings, and I had no idea if the Milky Way was even in the sky that night. I had no idea. We just kind of went. So instead of looking it up on the app, I just decided to point and shoot. But I finally found it, and it was above the trees behind the lake. And you'll see there on the horizon was lights. So I thought that it was light pollution because there was a town just like 5 minutes north of there. And so I didn't really think anything of it. Took a couple more photos, thought it was super cool having the lights reflect off the lake and stuff, but I really wasn't satisfied with that photo. So we got back in the car and we drove like 7 minutes north to Boulder Lake Dam. And it was like 3 miles down this winding road, trees dark, pitch black. It was kind of eerie, I'm not gonna lie. But we got to the dam and I got all my camera stuff out. We walked out onto the dam, got it all set up, and I snapped a photo. And I jumped up in excitement. I almost knocked over my camera. I was like, no way. Katie, those are the Northern Lights. And you could barely see them with your eyes. You could tell that they were pulsating, but they weren't nearly as bright as what showed up on my camera. If you're interested in what settings I use, I'm gonna put them here. I put my ISO to 6400. I use the aperture 1.4, and then I use an exposure of 4 seconds, and that's what all these photos are in. But yeah, it was insane. I mean, we looked at an app and it said that the probability of the Northern Lights being out that night was 1%. They were peaking in Quebec, Canada. And so we were just catching the rim of it, which is why it was so far on the horizon, because it was so far away. But it was unbelievable. And this is like a once in a lifetime shot for me. I don't know if I'll be able to capture something as cool as that, but that's why the Milky Way is so barely visible, because the Northern Lights were so bright that it was taking up a majority of the camera sensor. But you can still see it. So yeah, it literally the stars aligned that night, where we had a beautiful lake foreground, rocks in the foreground, trees, the Northern Lights, and then the Milky Way above that. Like, this is just such a cool image. And the fact that it was only 35 minutes north of my house. I mean, like, I've seen the Northern Lights before. They were crazy last year. I've seen them countless times living in Minnesota, but I don't know why. It was so crazy when I took that first photo. No way did we A, capture the Milky Way, B, captured the Northern Lights, and it was just on a whim. We had no plan. Like, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So this was a super, super, super cool image. And just like everything worked out. And these photos, they're not planned. These photos are barely edited. Like, I barely touched them. And I think that's why it's so cool, because what you see is kind of what you get. And yes, I edited them in post. You know, I did some post processing, but not a lot. And I think that's what makes this so cool and unique, that like, this is literally a moment that I don't know if I'll be able to recreate again. So it was super special, and I'm so grateful to have spent it with, you know, my partner, and the fact that we could share this moment together. And it was so surreal. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys got something out of this. But yeah, that's the photo. And if you want to buy it, I do sell digital prints on my website, and I will link my website down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.